Hello everyone, I'm Bo the Wild, and welcome back to Custom Robo. Today sees the end of the police tournament day, where we celebrate with Harry, Mira, and Marcia, and we also get the day afterwards, where we have to participate in a kinda sorta another tournament. Because the police tournament that we did in the last two episodes actually served a purpose. But before we get to more fighting against police squad members, let's go celebrate at Harry's home. Now, today, well, the rest of today on the tournament day serves a bit of a reminder of the main character's motivations. So you know all that stuff I told for you to write down in episode 1 about the main character and his dad? We're gonna get back to that now. You do get a bit of characterization with Harry. He doesn't want to be in his sister's shadow for his life. That's the reason why he doesn't want to join the police squad, which makes sense. Granted, I'm pretty sure he'd get more money if he worked with the police squad, but eh. Yeah, remember the watch? Yeah, we actually get to talk about the main character's father again, as I said earlier. It's a very unusually looking watch. It doesn't look like a watch, it looks like a bracelet. And as I said earlier, one of the things you want to write down is that the main character's father worked far away. Which either means the main character's father did something important, or the main character's father did something that was shady. I'll let you take your guess, because I'm not going to explain it right here. I will explain it later on, though, when we get to that point. Harry, you are a bit of a burden when you bang on about tutorials, but I like you as a character. Of course, this little ending sequence isn't that long. Basically, as I've said earlier, we just get a reminder on the main character's father, because that's going to start coming to light now. The main purpose for this day is that we have another string of fights that we gotta do against the police squad. But I've already said that, I'm just reminding. Does mean that our trio of characters are in good standing with each other now. We're working as a team. The tournament yesterday served a purpose because what we're going to be doing today actually had dealings with the tournament yesterday because we were the top finalists. The police squad can kind of sort of trust us now. So we're going to get another tournament. A tournament of sorts, I should say. It's more a string of fights. Again, if you're smarter than Harry, you could probably put 2 and 2 together. If they asked us specifically to participate in some practice matches against them, and we're the winners of the tournament that they just put on, and there's an autonomous robo going around, I wonder if the police squad wants us to work for them. Surprise! They do, but we're gonna have to participate in some fights before we find that out. I'm just telling you guys beforehand, because, yeah, the long version of this is that we participate in these fights, and then we learn that the police squad wants us to work for them. The Cliff Notes is, we participate in these fights, and the police squad wants us to work for them. Just without any of the fights that you're about to see. But before we actually start fighting any of the named characters, we're gonna have to fight 2 regular cops. At least 2 regular cops. It's at this point where Harry's starting to talk about more advanced techniques, just doing short hops and attacking from short hops. It's pretty interesting stuff, but I'm pretty sure a player who would be experimenting with this game would have already figured that out. We have a new weapon in the needle gun. The needle gun fires 3 projectiles in a vertical path. The closer you are with the needle gun, the better, just because it means all 3 projectiles will hit the opponent, and it actually has some really good knockdown power. The further away you are with the needle gun, the lot harder it is to hit, because the projectiles space themselves out naturally, meaning it's harder to hit with all 3 projectiles. I will say, as a weapon, I kind of like it, but it's... I don't think it does a lot of damage. It does a lot of knockdown, and that's what's really good about it. It's just that I prefer a lot of damage and knockdown. What I'm saying is that I love the shotgun. You'll hear me say that a lot until we get the shotgun, and then I'll just continue to spooge about the shotgun. I love the shotgun in this game. The shotgun's one of my favorite weapons in the game. Such a good weapon. It's not my most favorite weapon in the game, it's like my second favorite, and that's just because there is a legal part that I like more than the shotgun, but we won't see it because you have to get it in Grand Battle. And again, I'll talk about Grand Battle and the reason why I'm not doing it at the end of a new journey. Because I think I've specified that I'll talk about why I'm not doing Grand Battle, but I haven't specified when I'll talk about that. I'll do it at the end of a new journey. Because, surprise, after this episode, there's only 4 more episodes left. I wasn't kidding when episode 7 or 8, when I said that is the halfway point of the game. Here's cop number 2, nameless cop. Harry's going back to talking about stuff you probably already knew, which is use the environment to your advantage. Nah, duh, Harry. What, you just want me to stand out in the open? There is a map in this game, though, that has no barriers, by the way. That is the No Man's Land Coliseum. It's actually one of my favorite Coliseums, but you don't see it in A New Journey at all. He is using the Afterburner Gun. The Afterburner Gun is a strange weapon. It fires about 5 projectiles that stay near the user, and then they speed off towards the opponent. It has its uses, it's just that as a gun, it's more used as a distraction, like a pod or bomb would be used for. Yeah, as you can see, it fires and the projectiles start slow moving and then they speed off right towards you. The only problem is that they don't have great homing capability, so yeah, you can fire a lot of projectiles, but unless your opponent is not gonna move, you won't hit anything with it. I will say that was a bit of weird goings-on right there, where he got the invincible sound effect, where I couldn't hit him, yet he got knocked down. I don't know what that was all about. Kind of reminds me of the one bit where I talked to the guy outside of his, and the camera zoomed in on him, and I was outside of the zoom. We get the Submarine Bomb, which is a slow-moving projectile, but it does a lot of damage, and generally goes in the direction you want to fire it. So it's like the Wall Bomb, where wherever you're putting that cursor to, it will go there, and it will not arc over anything. We will have to fight Linda again, just to add some differentiation between Harry and Marcia's fights. The Linda fight here is a lot easier than the Linda fight against her in the tournament, just because we don't have to worry about Ernest. However, that also means you have to be careful about the Hornet guns a bit more. You don't want to get stung by Hornets. It sucks. Harry's mentioning something I've already talked about. If a bullet has a strong homing potential, if you let it get close to you and then you jump away, you will dodge it. That's the only problem with strong homing weapons. But other than that, this fight is pretty much the same fight, just with less Ernest. Granted, it's not like Ernest really did anything in the double fight. He was just more an annoyance compared to Linda. Again, the closer you are to Linda, the harder her Hornets have a harder time hitting you. While if you're in medium to far away range, yeah, they'll just do that to you. Don't let that happen to you. I probably should have switched over to the flamethrower, because it's a lot easier to hit than with the bubble gun. But hindsight's 20/20. I will still say the bubble gun is a good weapon if you know how to use it. Granted, that's with a lot of weapons in this game. It's a good weapon if you know how to use it. Except for like left 5-way and right 5-way. Both those guns suck. Also helps that, again, strike vanishers get iframes, so I can dodge some of the Hornets while taking them out. Because when you iframe a projectile, it disappears. I actually managed to hit her with the bomb, which is kind of funny. Granted, it is the straight bomb, which is kind of good. That it doesn't have a lot of power. Our next opponent is Roy. Again, this is very much like the fight we had against him in the tournament. It's just that we don't have to worry about Mira. A lot of these fights are just repeats of fights we've already had. It's just that we just have to focus on one opponent. This is where Harry explains what happens when two robos fire their guns at each other. One of them gets knocked down while its projectiles still exist. That's the system overload. You saw that earlier with Linda, and I'm pretty sure you've seen it earlier in the commentary. I think it's one of the better mechanics in the game just because you can actually save yourself from projectiles. Now, it won't stop pods or bombs, but it'll at least stop you from getting destroyed by projectiles. Of course, we do have to be careful because Roy by himself is a lot more dangerous than when we fought with him and Mira. Just because, again, getting close to Roy is a death sentence because of the Magnum, and he's also using a Strike Vanisher, so he gets A-frame, so it's a lot harder to hit him. Again, I should have probably switched over to the Flamethrower instead of just having the Bubble Gun. Because single projectile weapons are not really that great against Strike Vanishers because of their iframes. Granted, while I do like the Halberd, the Javelin still has the better dash attack, because you can just spam the dash attack. Trust me, you'll see that a lot. I'm pretty sure you have seen it a lot happening when I just do that, where I just repeatedly dash into my opponent. You'll see that a lot more. It's one of my favorite strategies, and it stems from the fact that the only Strike Vanisher you get in a New Journey is the Javelin. But it's not my favorite of the Strike Vanishers. My favorite would be Oboro's Strike Vanisher, which we haven't seen yet. And I'll explain why I like it when we actually do fight against him. I'll just give you a preview and say that yes, he does have a Strike Vanisher. The illegal Strike Vanisher. Yeah, I think it's around here where I was like, yeah, I like the bubble gun, but the flamethrower is a lot better. The Wave Pod and Wave Bomb are unique in the fact that they actually go through walls and obstacles by sitting out of waves, those green waves that you've probably seen before. They're not bad, it's just that out of all the bomb types and pod types, they're not that interesting. Particularly the pod version, just because pods generally roam around the map, so you really don't need something that goes through walls. Now the Wave Bomb has its uses, just because it's a bomb that goes through walls. And of course the Mira fight is pretty much the same fight that we had in the team fight. We just have to fight just her. And of course she's using the Delta Bomb, which is one of my favorite bombs. Just because it fires 3 bombs and can mess with human and AI alike. I will say it was kind of funny right there when I tried to knock her in. I did knock her in, but I accidentally dashed too far to knock myself in. Again, When you're downed, if you fall into a hazard, you take full damage instead of taking less damage when you're knocked down. That's always something to keep in mind when there are hazards. You can finish fights real fast if there are hazards and you knock your opponent into the hazards when they're down. I did feel like a dummy when that happened twice, because again, one of my favorite strategies is just to rush the AI with whatever gun I have and knock them down. I got told twice by a dash attack. It doesn't help that the Soul Aerial Beauty's dash attack is pretty good. It's that weird spin. It's like a horizontal top instead of a vertical top, if that makes sense. Instead of going left or right, it goes up and down. It's like a buzzsaw, I should say. That's a lot better comparison than a top. But before we can actually end this day, we gotta fight the Chief. I would consider the Chief a boss fight, but he's actually not that hard, just because he's been retired from fighting for how long. Means his skills are all rusted, so he's not really that difficult. Float is much like Umbrella and Satellite. It prevents the enemy from jumping. Again, I don't have a problem with those pods. They're my second favorite pod family, just because it prevents the enemy from jumping. It's just that I'd much rather have the Seeker pods. Harry explaining that certain weapons are more effective for the system overload. Hornet and Rayfall are most definitely the best time to rush your opponent just because they fire very slow. Afterburner would also be in the same class because it fires a slower projectile. Its rate of fire is also slow, so it allows you to remove the projectile for going for a system overload. Not actually complaining that Harry's explaining that, because it's something to keep in mind. That is always one of my favorite opening strategies, by the way, if I get out first, just to dash attack with the Javelin. Again, you can do a whole lot more damage with that repeated dash attacks, compared to just firing your gun. I will say the float pods are probably the best aerial chasers, just because they go directly towards the opponent. And again, if you jump at all, they'll hit you. Which also creates that funny little sequence that you just saw where, because I hit him, he got knocked into the air and the pod actually hit him. But yeah, he's an old man who hasn't fought in a while, so it doesn't really mean much of anything. And we get the Swordstorm Gun and Standard Pod F. The Swordstorm Gun is one of the worst weapons in the game. Don't use it. What it does is that it fires 4 projectiles that are above whoever you shot it towards, and it takes like 5 seconds before they home in on the target. You will see me complain about that later on. Also, you heard them talk about the Class S, that we are skilled enough to be Class S. The whole entire reason for that tournament is to find commanders who are strong enough to be Class S. That's the reason why they put us through these set of fights, so they could be sure that we could be tested for Class S license. We also need a recommendation from a Class S commander. And it just so happens Roy, Mira, the Chief, and Linda are all Class S. But there's a reason for why Class S is secret, and that goes back into the overall plot that we haven't got to yet, but we will actually be getting into after this episode. It's around this part of the game, get ready for a lot of plot dumps. The game likes to take a good 15 to 20 minutes explaining stuff that's going on. We haven't reached that, but prepared for in later parts for that to happen. Of course, this license test, we don't have to do a written part. All we have to do is fight a robo. So at least I don't have to remember anything. Of course, the Class S license test is our second fight against Raohu. This is still only Raohu 1, so all the stuff I said the first time we fought Raohu 1 applies here. It will be in the same map that we did fight him the first time, the Nature Park. The same strategy applies here. Stay away from him, don't let him hit you with his main gun, and keep moving because those pods will hit you if you stop moving. This fight is just as difficult as the first one. This fight is basically the first one. It's just that you might have more parts to deal with Raohu and what he does. Still, fight very cautiously. Some of the best times to hit Raohu is when he's dashing. Just because he generally doesn't do much of anything when he does dash. Again, Raohu is a modified Lightning Sky model. He is the second illegal Lightning Sky model. Because Ruhel is the first Lightning Sky model that is illegal. It's just that we fight Raohu first. And again, Raohu's projectiles likes to blow out the noise if he hits you with the big projectile. Trust me, it's a lot worse in the later fights that we have against Raohu. Again, just play cautiously. Raohu can and will destroy you if you play recklessly. Bait him with pods, try and shoot your bombs and intercept him, and wait for him to start dashing to start hitting him. Again, the flame gun is a great choice for this, just because it does a good enough damage, and it does good knockdown. I remember when I first played this game, I got stuck on the Raohu fights just because they are that difficult for a younger person. But since I'm older and I don't have the brain of a Neanderthal, I can win against Raohu. And with that, we are all Class S commanders. And actually get to the meat of this plot, because we get an explanation of what's going on. Essentially, Raohu is a living creature that's taken the form of a robo. It was a force that almost destroyed the entire world, but was stopped. because it comes from so long ago, its Colosseum replicates the natural world. And basically the chief is saying, yeah, there used to be a natural world compared to what we're living in right now. However, Roy's like, yeah, these people have been through I don't know how many battles, and they fought Rauhu and became Class S commanders. Let them go home for the day, because we're about to drop a giant plot dump onto them. And I mean literally, the next episode is a giant plot dump. So be prepared for that, because episode 10 is over. Go home. It's the only thing we can do. Go home before we get a plot dump.